Now, back to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
You may be thinking Phil Collins Friday. Nope, I'm thinking Baldy Friday. That's what I'm thinking. JD is here, in for Dibs today, and Baldy is here, and I cannot wait for this breakdown. Baldy, who do you think we're going to ask you about? What do you think, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing good. I can probably imagine that something about your quarterback might be probably topic number one there in San Francisco.
I mean, I almost just kind of want to grab your hand and go like step by step through this. So let's back up with your breakdown and how it compares to the Mike Martz of the world, the Mike Lombardis of the world. We've had some people come out and say, man, I watched, he can't play. What's Baldy's breakdown?
I don't believe it. I mean, look, if they want to make the evaluation off 3 games, that's fine. I don't want to do that. I want to give a guy a chance to learn, grow, with a proven coach that knows how to help a quarterback along in Kyle Shanahan. And so he's had a number of pupils over the years. I just want to give him a chance. I don't want to write him off. I think it's kind of silly to do it. And I got respect for Mike Lombardi and Mike Martz. I mean, they've been around this game a long, long time. But I don't know how anybody can just say that he can't play. Because I could plug in Josh Allen's tape, his first, forget about the first game. I could plug in the tape for most of the first year. I could plug in his tape at Wyoming and go, well, there's plenty of reasons why he can't play. So I just don't want to do that. You give me a year, give me 17, 20 starts, then I might be able to make a better evaluation.
Brian Baldinger with us, as always, couple times a week throughout the season here on 95.7 The Game, and getting into the breakdown of Trey Lance and all of the talk that's out there. There's even already been some high-level discussion. This, for instance, Jason La Canfora yesterday saying that people close to Kyle Shanahan believe that a benching could be in the future. So, Baldy, before we go even into more X's and O's, I want to ask you this, because I made this statement about a half hour ago that one of two things at this point is likely true. Either the 49ers picked the wrong guy, or they've been unfair to him by having Jimmy Garoppolo here, because it has accelerated our assessment of his play, and we've asked him now basically to be awesome right out of the gate, and I don't know how realistic that is. So what is your thought on what kind of patience is fair here?
Well, complete patience is the only way that can be fair. I mean, part of why Jimmy is there is just a financial component to it. I mean, it was just too expensive to cut. They want to get some value for him because he can be a quality starter in this league, and so there's some value there, and so I think that's part of it. But then the other part is that worth all of the noise that it's going to bring? Because we knew it was going to happen if they did this, that it was just going to bring all the outside noise in, which is fair. There's a lot of analysts out there, a lot of people that know football and think that this isn't right for a young player. But, the fact is Trey just hasn't played a lot of football. He played 1 year at North Dakota State, all right? He sat out a year, played 1 game in a COVID year, and played 2 games last year. I mean, you go back to his high school year, whenever that last year was, 2016, 17, whatever, he's played 1 year of football. You look at guys that have played 1 year of football, there's not many that end up being picked that high in the NFL and play in the NFL. They just don't. And so, Kenny Pickett played 51 games at Pitt. This guy played 1 year of football. And so they're basing it off his talent level, his arm strength, some things that might just be a window dressing. Maybe it's not the right evaluation, but there was a whole bunch of people in that organization that said this is who we want. And so could they all be wrong this early, this fast? Because I don't believe the teammates feel that way. Not yet anyways. And so let's let them play a little bit. The first game, it's in a monsoon. I don't know what quarterback would have looked good in those kind of conditions. Field, weather, wet ball, all those things. It's not really a great test to evaluate any quarterback in those conditions.
Baldy, what did you like about his performance? Maybe the thing you like the most, and then just some of the things you think, all right, he's got to work on that, he's got to fix that, independent of the elements in play.
Well, he made some good throws. I mean, Ray McLeod, the deep over route was spot on. Like, he's got Tyler Croft on a drag wheel route that the Shanahans have been running for 30 years in this business, and he overthrew him, but maybe he threw that ball to George Kittle every time he threw it in practice. And, George Kittle just, runs differently than Tyler Croft. There's no extra gear for Tyler to go get that ball. So I am defending him here on the throw, but, it's a touchdown throw. Maybe to Kittle it is a touchdown. But I just like the general poise that he played with. It wasn't ideal conditions. He handled the ball really well. Wet ball, the best thing you can do in those kind of conditions, take care of the football. Just take care of it. He probably ran too many times. Some of them designed runs, but he lost his starting tailback, at the top of the second quarter. He got 6 runs out of Elijah Mitchell. I mean, you like to be able to hand off to your starting tailback, a bunch of times. He couldn't do that for much of the game.
Yeah, how sustainable is 13 rushing attempts for him? And were you surprised that Deebo Samuel had as many rushing attempts as he did, or is that just part of the monsoon?
No, it's part of Elijah Mitchell going down and getting 6 carries, and they needed a guy that can carry it. So Deebo did, and that's not the role that he wants to have. But game day, when your starting tailback goes down, he's the next best option, and he is. I mean, you're not going to put an undrafted rookie out there in those kind of conditions right now. Although he might be a really good player in Mason, but in that situation, give it to a proven guy, a proven veteran, to help carry the load right there as they try to get the running game going.
Brian Baldinger with us here. Willard and Dibbs, 95.7 The Game. JD's in for Dibbs. Okay, Baldy, you just mentioned his name, and I remember the Baldy's breakdown you did on Jordan Mason in that Minnesota Vikings preseason game. What do you think, in the absence of Eli Mitchell, the 49ers should do in their backfield with the personnel they have?
Well, I mean, we saw what kind of, Jimmy Wilson is. I just don't know that he's a guy that, you want to have carry the ball the main amount right now. I mean, when you watch, Jeffrey Wilson play, I think he's a little pedestrian, not knocking him. It looks like both Mason and Tyrion Davis-Price both have more power. They're bigger backs. They look like they have more power. But, Jeffrey's been there a long time. He's a veteran. And so, they may start with that. But at some point, you just don't want to run a committee. You want to get a guy that can get a feel for the game, because there is a dance that goes on between the back and the line. And we know that, you've got a lot of new faces up front for the offensive line. At some point, a back, you hope, is going to get the best feel for how they're blocking up front. And I think if you're just rotating backs in to see who gets hot, you might not be able to see it. You might not get enough carries. You might not get a rhythm. So right now, I think probably Wilson is running back number 1. But, you like to see both Mason and Davis-Price both get a chance to see if they can be the guy. Because let's face it, nobody knew Elijah Mitchell could do it last year until guys got hurt. And you said, can a 6th-round pick at Louisiana become our starting tailback? Well, yeah, he can. And maybe that can be Mason right now. And maybe that can be Tyrion Davis-Price. But you won't know until they get a chance to go play. And so I'm unsure right now exactly who it is.
Baldy, I got to ask you about the Seattle matchup specifically. I'm watching them play Monday night, and nobody thought too much of them, but I'm looking at Pete Carroll's defense flying around on the Seattle turf up there, and it looked similar to other years where they've had underrated defenses, just hitting people and high energy and really taking on his personality. What did you like about what they did Monday, and what maybe is transferable to Sunday against the Niners?
Well, you got to start with Geno Smith. I mean, he goes out there and completes his first 13 passes. There were about 3 or 4 plays in the game where he did a pretty good imitation of Russell Wilson, just avoiding pressure in the backfield. And, both touchdown passes were well thrown and well designed. But, I mean, he created those plays much the way you saw last week, Justin Fields do the same thing, extending a play and then, finding Dante Pettis on the other side of the field. So he did that. He played with unbelievable poise, unbelievable accuracy, and he took care of the football. And you would hope, if you're the 49ers, that when you have what I think is a top 3 defense in this league, you would hope that you'd be able to affect the quarterback far better than what we saw against Geno Smith on Monday night by Denver. Denver doesn't have a defensive front like, San Francisco does. You got 2 rookie tackles out there. I would imagine Nick Bosa wants to go welcome them both into the NFL. He'll line up against both. We'll see, how they protect and chip and slide and all the things you got to do. But I would imagine Nick Bosa wants a shot at both Charles Cross and Abe Lucas and just let them feel what his punch feels like.
Baldy, you said a few minutes ago, sideways rain in Chicago, not the greatest time to assess your brand new quarterback. So what's your reaction when I tell you that there's an 80% chance of rain in Santa Clara this weekend?
Well, good. He's used to throwing a wet ball. It's part of the league. You can't determine what the weather's going to be like. Everybody would like to have it, sunny and no wind and perfect conditions. But if it's not going to be perfect conditions, you find out a lot about a quarterback. San Francisco went to Green Bay in January last year and beat the Packers in horrible weather. It's not a good field. It's too cold for, human consumption. You just got to be able to deal with all the elements. It's part of playing a game.
When you look at the X's and O's of the 49ers and the Seahawks, do you think one of them is helped by the rain?
I'd probably say that just the experience that Seattle has at both running back and at quarterback, I'd probably put a little bit more experience with Seattle to be able to handle it. They live in Seattle. It's not like they don't see rain every day. Right. So I imagine they get a little bit more of it than they do in Santa Clara. So, they might be a little bit better prepared for it.
Brian Baldinger, 95.7 The Game. The only other thing, Baldy, I got is I really just wonder your locker room experience, your best bet on what veteran players are feeling right now with what's going on around them, with the idea of the Trey and the Jimmy dynamic and the disappointing 0-1 start and a bunch of really difficult games. We know how fast everybody gets freaked out. 0-2, we know what the data is if you're 0-2 as far as making the playoffs. So if you're a veteran in that locker room, what are you thinking right now?
Well, let's just take Trent Williams, all right? He's as good a player as there is at his position in football and has been. Let's just take Trent. I think Trent's job is to make sure his 3 young guys inside know their assignments, know how to, block every single front that Seattle's going to throw. And, that's their concentration. They got to get better up front. Trent's the leader there. It starts with him. And so I know there's a lot of noise, and, the day off is, Tuesday, and locker rooms open on Wednesday, and, that's the question everybody's asking. And, every reporter runs to an offensive lineman to ask about it because they usually, give you the most honest answer. But, they've got their work to do. And this is early in the season. One game doesn't matter, but you don't want to be 0-2. You don't want to lose to Seattle. For sure, you don't want to lose to Seattle. That's your division rival. There's been some classic games played between these two franchises. You want to come out on top of this game. Seattle has owned the 49ers. Outside of that one playoff game, 6 inches away from deciding who goes to, the championship, Seattle's owned them. You can't worry about who the quarterback is when Seattle's coming to town for your home opener. This is a difficult assignment. Pete knows this team. He knows this franchise. He's been around it. You got to go take care of business, regardless of who's playing quarterback.
Baldy, great stuff, as always. And we love having you. We're excited for the whole season, and we appreciate it, my man.
Thanks, guys. Good to be with you. I'll talk to you next week for sure.
Yep, absolutely. There he goes. Brian Baldy and the Baldy Breakdowns right here on 95.7 The Game.